With the hotfix last week, Lepic was lucky enough to receive a buff, changing small pieces of his kit, but the main buff to focus on was his Transcendence mod called Increased Efficiency, a mod that was designed for mobbing with his ultimate, but always sacrificed way too much damage to justify its use. Now though, after having its damage doubled and increasing its fire rate by 60%, it's now in a much healthier spot, and possibly one of Lepic's best mobbing builds right now. But the best part about the build? You'll even be unkillable, and no, I'm not exaggerating. So in today's video, we'll be taking a look at the Megaman Lepic build, talking all the fun interactions that it has, what makes it so good, how to build it, what gear is needed, Arche Tuning, and much, much more. It's a lot to cover, so if all that sounds good to you, then let's get to it. Now of course, with this being a build guide, the best place for us to be able to start is by going into the module screen as to what makes up the Descendant. So this is going to be the build that we do have for Megaman Lepic, and as you can see, if you want to be able to take a screenshot, now is the perfect time. But we're going to be starting by talking about the Transcendence mod, and that is going to be Increased Efficiency. Now, how this one works is that when you activate your skill 4, so your ultimate, it changes into a unique weapon, and it used to be a case that it would take MP just in regular intervals, but now it's a case that it no longer consumes that while it's active. It only consumes the MP when you start firing the unique weapon, and it also has a chance of being able to recover MP when it lands a critical hit. So right off the bat, we want to go into as much skill damage as possible, but we also want to go into critical hits, and that is going to be increasing our rate as well as our damage, increasing our chance of being able to get our MP back, so that's going to be sustained for the skill, but it's also going to be increasing the amount of DPS that we can do with that skill while that weapon is equipped. Now, by having a look at the item card when it comes to increased efficiency with the skill 4, you will notice that we have reduced the cost down, going from 30 per shot all the way down to 11.9, and I will talk about some of the best ways that we can do that, but the MP recovery is the bit that I want to kind of talk about here. So it kind of goes off our max MP, so the more max MP that we do have, and we can increase this various ways, but the more max MP that we have, we get 15% of that back every single time this triggers, and that means that we're going to be getting multiple shots. We're going to be getting more than just the shots that we've just fired out back as a refund because of how much MP that we do have on the build. So as you can already see, we already have 444.7 MP, and there are ways to be able to increase this even further. So the more MP that you do have, the more shots you'll essentially get back, because we're also reducing that cost as well. Now, when it comes to the critical hit side of things, you only have a 30% chance of being able to recover that MP, but keep in mind that is going to be per enemy that you do land that critical hit on, and because we are increasing the range on this ability every single time we shoot, this means that every single enemy that is going to be receiving that critical hit has a 30% chance, and it is more of kind of consistent than it kind of suggests on the item card, so you don't even need to kind of worry about MP when it comes to this build. I don't think I've ever ran out of MP, and I have got sharp precision shots, which is something that we'll be talking about a little bit later on in this build. So as for the rest of the modules, let's start talking about what makes them so good. So we do go for the full crit package, and in that case it's going to be skill concentration, skill insight, front lines, as well as emergency measures, and it's going to give us a 207.7% boost to our damage as well as our skill critical hit rate. Now we do increase the range like we did talk about earlier with skill expansion. There are ways to be able to increase this even further with Arche Tuning, but we'll be talking about that a little bit later on in the video. Of course, to be able to reduce the cost per shot, we are going for maximized conservation as well as strong mentality. This allows us to be at over 50% to our skill cost reduction, and we do have other ways when it comes to the rest of our gear. And then lastly, just to round it up in terms of skill power, we are going for maximized skill. Now, unfortunately, this does affect our skill cooldown, but because we are consistently using our skill 4, we are essentially just triggering this at the start of the level. We'll never have to worry about this going into cooldown. And when it comes to cooldowns for the rest of our abilities or anything like that, we do have something else that's going to be working quite nicely with the rest of this build. That's going to be Veterans Tactics. Now, I just kind of want to round off before we start getting into vet tactics, talking about Preemptive Strike. Now, when it came to the rest of the build, I was messing about with going into more skill power and things like that, but I found that Preemptive Strike was actually the best kind of increase the amount of DPS when it came to mobbing, and the reason why is because this helps not just if you land a critical hit, it also works if you go for a non-critical hit as well, and it just really just kind of mopped up the floor with the rest of the mobs. So this one ended up being the best in slot for me in terms of the testing that I managed to do, so I do think that Preemptive Strike is probably worth the slot right here, and it means that you don't have to worry about multiple shots just to be able to go through every single group, so I would recommend slotting that one in. Now the last one we do want to talk about is Veterans Tactics. Now this one works fantastically in this build, especially since we do have an increase to our skill cooldown and we don't have things like Nimble Fingers or MP Conversion helping us out. The real reason why this is fantastic though is not only does it help us with all of these skills right here, it's also going to weirdly helping us out with the passive. Now when it comes to close call, this is where we're going to be getting our God mode from. This was something that I did mess about with in terms of like the gravity build and everything like that, which, you know, that in combination with the fact that the enemies couldn't shoot back, just made you have God mode when it came to Lepic. But when it comes to close call, you actually can have God mode with this. It was something I was going to mess about with until I actually saw a video by AlisaTFD. I do apologize if I've pronounced that incorrectly. I will be linking them to in the description, the comment section down below as the pinned comment. But they essentially got a video out before I managed to do my testing, and it pretty much just confirmed essentially what I was looking for. But yes, this does actually trigger every 5 seconds with Veterans Tactics if you can get this to be able to happen. A 90.4% chance is very frequent, especially with the amount of enemies that you can affect at the same time. Yeah, you have a 5-second duration of invincibility and damage immunity while you have close call active, and then Veterans Tactics also has a 5-second cooldown, which means that by the time you've come out of this and you've regained some of your health, you'll have then pretty much kind of like procced this to be able to fully reset close call, and that then essentially just keeps looping over and over, essentially meaning that you can never take damage. Now, this does require you to be able to actually get a kill with Veterans Tactics, so if you are going against just purely a boss, this isn't going to be working, but if you are finding like other mobs that exist around the kind of room and at the same time as the boss, then this is more than enough to be able to actually get it to do. One thing to note with Veterans Tactics though, if you are looking to be able to get the full immunity with close call, is that if you do have any of your other skills on cooldown, there is a chance that Veterans Tactics will reset that first. So if you are looking to be able to go full invincibility and full immunity and everything like that, make sure you don't cast any other skill, and then that means that as long as close call is the only one that's on cooldown, that will be the one that gets reset. But it is a fantastic combination to be able to have. So that wraps it up on the module side of things. Let's start talking about the reactor. Now, of course, we are going for a crit build. There is nothing better than going for skill critical hit rate and critical hit damage. This is going to be increasing our DPS, but it's also going to be increasing our critical hit rate. So the more chances that we can land that critical hit, the better we're going to be off when it comes to the MP recovery side of things. When it comes to the reactor, though, you do want to go for burning mechanics. This gives you the most increase to the amount of damage that your skill 4 can do. And when it comes to the mounting side of things, there isn't anything specific that you do want to be able to go for, because this is a unique weapon, so it won't carry over any of like the passive abilities or anything like that, but it will carry over the modules that you do slot into it. So in that case, the best two things to be able to have are going to be hand cannon or tactical rifle, and those ones are allowed to have access to sharp precision shot, which is what we actually intend to have when it comes to our unique weapon, so that we can fire out more shots and be able to increase our fire rate. When it comes to the component side of things, while we would get max amount of damage when it comes to the Slayer set, so for example, if I just go and grab that one right here, you can see that we would get a massive increase in the amount of skill power that we would get. The only downside is the fact that it would increase our skill cost. Now, technically, yes, you have offset enough when it comes to the module side of things to be able to help out, but you probably will run your way through all of your MP when it comes to that. That said, though, I actually did find a really nice combination, which still gives us skill power, but it also gives us skill cost reduction. So it actually works out as like a nice mini version of Slayer, and that's going to be a 2-piece of the Volcanic, so I would recommend auxiliary power as well as memory, and then a 2-piece of the Ascending Armory set, which is going to be then giving us skill cost. So we do have a 6.2% increase to our fire skill power, which works really nicely with maximized skill, as this then opens up the buckets when it comes to skill power, meaning that we're going to be doing more damage, and then also going for the skill cost reduction for a 6.5% reduction from the Ascending Armory, means that we're going to be then having less MP fired every single time that we're going to be shooting our shots. So yes, I do think this is probably the best combination to give you the most consistent feel all the way through mobbing. It allows you to be able to burn through a few of your shots anyway, so you don't actually have to worry about running out of your MP, and this was definitely the most kind of like consistent kind of feeling combination that I actually did manage to get. When it comes to the kind of rolls that you do want, max MP and max HP is pretty good. In terms of auxiliary power, you probably do want an MP recovery one in there instead of fire resistance. When it comes to the sensor, max MP and MP recovery in combat is fantastic. It's pretty much the best roll. Defense and MP recovery modifier is going to be best for memory. And then lastly, when it comes to the processor, no one gives a damn. So you can just pretty much roll anything that you do want in there. So when it comes to the weaponry side of things, once again, it's not too important, like I already mentioned when it came to the reactor side of things. in terms of like the kind of like base platform, none of the passives are going to be passing over or anything like that. So going for like Secret Garden, even though it does help with tech, you're not going to be receiving any kind of benefit because technically you do not have it equipped once you go into the unique weapon. So therefore you're not going to be seeing, like when you chuck your grenade, you're not going to see additional skill power or anything like that. But what does transfer over is going to be the module side of things. So if we go into this, the only two modules that you need to care for are going to be Sharp Precision Shot as well as Fire Rate Up. Both of these, when you hold down the unique weapon, it allows it to be able to stack up, and it will then consistently ramp itself up so you start firing out more fireballs. Anything else that exists on the screen you do not need to care about. You can't increase its magazine size, you can't increase critical hit rate or anything like that. None of these modules actually transfer over, it's just purely fire rate, and those are going to be the only ones that you need to care about. Now, as we swap on over to the Arche Tuning side of things, this is going to be the route that I would recommend for yourself. When it comes to some of these, it does look very different compared to some of the other kind of like skill builds that we're going for. But the main thing is that we don't care about cooldown because we have Veteran's Tactics, and 5% isn't really going to be offering us too much. We're not going into Colossus because this isn't going to be a Colossus type build. This is purely for mobbing. But so we do want to focus on any of the purple mods that are going to increase our actual damage, increasing our MP, increasing our critical hits, increasing our MP recovery modifier as well, which is quite nice. That means we actually get a little bit more MP back every single time we manage to trigger something to give us MP, which is quite nice. But yeah, essentially any kind of like skill power is fantastic. Going for range allows us to be able to get our traction nade to be able to suck in a little bit further, to be able to kickstart a fight. Skill costs, once again, fantastic. It's only a small thing, but it is still quite nice to be able to actually have in this build. And like I said, just round it all off with the critical hit damage as well as critical hit rates. And that is what allows us to be able to get up to our 55.575% critical hit rate, which is fantastic. Of course, you can get this higher if you do have a gold roll when it comes to your reactor into critical hit rate, but I'm more than happy with that, and it's more than consistent when it comes to actually taking it out and about in fights. And when it comes to the inversion, technically any boost to MP is going to be ideal here, so we do go for our Neural Focus, which gives us more MP as we start killing enemies. This makes shots easier to be able to put out. We also have our Selective Neurostimulation, which gives us free MP back every 45 seconds, making it harder for us to be able to run dry. And lastly, pretty much nothing else gives us any more MP boost. So the last one I just kind of slotted on here just to be able to make me a little bit more tanky so I don't have to always rely on close call is going to be Biodensity Augmentation, because this is going to be stacking up, it's going to be giving me more max HP, and because most of the things that we do have in here are going to be rolled into max HP, especially including our auxiliary power, which does have that, it's going to actually get us over to around about 6,000 HP. Not a huge amount, but it is still something that allows us to be able to tank a few hits rather than always being able to rely on that close call. And with all that out of the way, that wraps it up for my breakdown of Lepic's new hotness build around increased efficiency. While I am a huge fan of the gravity builds for him, this is so much more fun to be able to rock in content and makes Lepic feel fantastic to play. For such a small change on paper, it's a massive ripple effect in the grand scheme of things, and I can't wait to see what else we can expect in the future. But this is a section I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Season 2, Episode 2 so far? Are you a Gravity build or a Megaman build Lepic player right now? And lastly, which Descendant do you want to see get a new build guide on next? Let me know all that and more down below. Massive thank you for making your way to the end of the video. As I always say, keep yourself safe, keep yourselves well. See you all on the next video.